guys, welcome to a brand new episode of the Fit Women's Weekly podcast. I am so excited to chit chat with you guys today because it is a very special week here in America. It is Thanksgiving week, and that's what I want to talk about in this short episode. I want to talk about these 7 tips that I have, 7, for making this the healthiest Thanksgiving possible when it comes to the food choices that you make. And I'm just going to go ahead and say that as a personal trainer, some of the tips that I might give are probably a little surprising, and that's okay. So without further ado, let's jump into this episode. But before we do, make sure if you're watching this on YouTube to go ahead and hit that like button. And if you're listening to this on a podcast platform, make sure that you're subscribed so that you don't miss out on future episodes of the show. Okay, so tip number 1 when it comes to how to eat healthy on Thanksgiving, and these are the rules that I follow as well, is tip number 1. Don't set self-imposed rules on how you should be eating on Thanksgiving. Don't go into it with this list of I can eat this and I can eat this. There should be no good foods and there should be no bad for you foods. And that's the healthiest outlook on balanced nutrition. Not every food is meant to be nutritionally fantastic for you, but those foods might be mentally good for you. Maybe there's a meal or a side dish that has some sort of memory to you. And if you were to avoid that simply because it's not healthy, then you're probably going to feel like you're missing out on something. You're going to feel deprived because that's something that you only get one time of year. So go into the day without any rules or regulations of how you're going to pile your plate. Rule number 2, eat what you want. And that kind of goes off of rule number 1. If there's something that's in front of you, they're like, I just have to have that. Absolutely go for it. Enjoy it. It doesn't mean that you have to pile your plate high with it. You don't have to eat it as if you're never going to be able to eat it again in your life, but don't deprive yourself out of it. And I think that that's really important to remember too, is that sometimes we go into a holiday meal thinking like, oh my gosh, my grandmother makes her famous mac and cheese, or I'm making my grandmother's mac and cheese. I've got to eat as much as I can because I'm only going to be able to eat it this time ever, right? Or I'm only eating it on Thanksgiving. That's the only time you ever see it. Well, then kind of ask yourself, why is that? I look at some foods. I used to look at foods like this, but then one day I was sitting around on a weekend and went, you know what? I'm kind of craving deviled eggs. Deviled eggs are typically something that we would have at like a holiday meal, but it took me about 15 minutes to whip up some delicious deviled eggs during a July. Or green bean casserole. We look at green bean casserole as a traditional side dish that you have at Thanksgiving, but I was craving it one day in like September and I made it. So you don't have to look at it as like I can only eat it right now and you end up going overboard with it, right? So think of it like that. It's not the only time you're going to get your hands on it. Now, on the same token, just because you have something in front of you doesn't mean you have to eat it if you don't want to. We need to get rid of food guilt. We need to get rid of this idea. I have something in my eyeball. We need to get rid of this idea that, oh, my brother made this special casserole, let's say red rice, because red rice is one of the foods that I'm not crazy about, but it's always at our table. My brother made red rice, so because he made it, I don't want to hurt his feelings. Your palate and what you like shouldn't hurt somebody else's feelings. It could be the world's greatest red rice, but at the end of the day, that's not something that speaks to me. That's not something that I want on my plate. So I don't say anything. I don't tell the person that made it. I'm not going to look at my brother and go, I don't like red rice, by the way, I'm not eating this. When I'm going through the buffet making my plate, I'm just going to skip over it. It doesn't have to be this big deal. And if somebody were to ask later on if I think it is going to hurt his feelings, which is ridiculous, but if he were to say like, oh, hey, Kindal, what'd you think? I'll just be like, yeah, it was delicious. You know, sometimes having a little white lie is okay. But also, if you have the type of family that you can be open with, if they ask you that question, just be like, hey, it looked great. That's just not something that I'm into. Can we please get rid of trying to avoid hurting one another's feelings when it comes to food and the choices that we put on our own plate? Other foods that I don't put on, I'm not going to put on peas. It's like the one vegetable I don't like. And I'm not going to eat mac and cheese. I know, that's crazy. Yes, I am American, but I'm just not a big mac and cheese fan. So it's always on our plate. My nieces love it. My sister-in-law always brings it. I don't eat it. It just doesn't make me feel good. I would much rather have more sweet potatoes than mac and cheese. So tip number 3, if you don't want to eat it, don't eat it. Tip number 4 is don't skip your meals leading up to it. The average American eats slightly over 2,000 calories when they sit down for their Thanksgiving meal. So it's pretty normal for people to wake up and go, oh, I know I'm going to be eating so much this afternoon at dinner. I'm just going to skip breakfast and lunch. Well, then what happens? 1, you're hangry because you're also socializing, which uses a lot of energy, so you become starving. And 2, by the time it is time to sit down, you end up going overboard with what you put on your plate, and then you're feeling like, oh my God, I feel so disgusting, right? Whereas if you were to just have nutritionally balanced meals and before leading up when you're actually hungry, you're going to make much more wiser decisions, not only on the food choices that you put on your plate, but also on the amount of food that you put on your plate. Which actually, this is not rule number 7 or another rule on my list. So let's consider this a whole nother rule, but you don't have to be on the Clean Platers Club. If you still have some food left on your plate and you're full and you've sat down with it, then call it a day. You can always put those in a leftover box to take home with you, but you don't need to intentionally stuff yourself to the point where you're uncomfortable. And that is why I love holiday meals, because you get a little bit more time to think about the foods that you're putting into your body, because you're having conversations with the people around you. You're slowing down in the speed of what you're eating, right? So you're most likely going to be a little bit more in touch with your hunger cues, so that as you're eating, you're able to kind of gauge, you know what, I'm kind of feeling full. I'm going to go ahead and stop here. So even if your grandpa's stuffing is left on your plate, but you're full, put it aside. You can either eat it later, or you can put it in for some takeouts. Personally, I always like to leave a little bit of space so that when I'm eating my plate, I go, you know what, that's plenty, because I want to save room for dessert. Because remember, rule number 1 is don't set rules. I'm going to have some dessert. I'm actually the person that makes the dessert at our Thanksgiving every year, which this year I'm making an apple pie cheesecake. I tested it out this past weekend because I've never made a cheesecake before. It turned out so good, and I am very, very excited to be able to share it with my family, but also have a big old piece for myself. Next tip is don't track. If you are currently tracking your macros, just don't worry about it. One day is not going to hurt you. You can focus on, if you want to, making sure that your plate has a really good source of protein. Really load up on the turkey, obviously a fantastic source of protein in and of itself. Make sure that you are getting some sort of vegetable in there, and then load up on your favorite casseroles. But don't worry about tracking. It is one day, and which takes me to the next rule of Thanksgiving is one day, or Christmas, right? You can absolutely use these rules for Christmas Day as well. Get rid of food guilt, enjoy yourself on that day, but then the next day, get back to more balanced meals. Don't start piling up, going back to the leftovers multiple times a day. Eat what you can, eat when you're hungry, eat your normal routine and schedule the days after. Have fun that one day, and then move on. And then the next topic or my tip is be thankful. This has been a really hard year for a lot of people. Inflation right now is crazy. Groceries are crazy expensive. The meal that's in front of you is a multi-$100 meal, right? For a lot of people, especially if multiple families are bringing things. Dishes are expensive. Like just making macaroni and cheese, if you're going to follow Teeny, if you guys follow Teeny on TikTok, love her to death. But her macaroni and cheese, just that dish itself is about $40 to make with all of the ingredients that you need. So then you add that with all the other stuff. Be grateful that you're able to do that and have that respect for the food. And remember that food's not just about calories in, calories out. It's not just about nutrition. It is about the experience and being grateful for what you have in front of you. And just enjoy it. It's okay. Food is more than calories. That is what I will say. And it took me a really, really long time to understand that and to be okay and comfortable with that idea. I tried so many different diets throughout the years, and it took me a really long time to realize that when I did something so drastic as being vegan, or I was on the carnivore diet for several months, that it affects other people around you too. So on this day, just have fun and don't worry about the rest. And then finally, work out. Work out if you want to. Don't work out if you don't want to. I personally always do a small workout on Thanksgiving morning simply because that's routine for me. Every Thursday, I get up and I do a workout. And Thursday for a holiday is no different, but it's more because I just enjoy moving my body before I know I'm going to be sitting down with my family around a table for hours on end where, you don't always feel so great. So it just feels good to move the body before doing something like that. If you don't want to do that, you don't have to. The number one rule is you do not have to exercise in order to earn your holiday plate. I simply exercise because I enjoy it. In fact, I'm doing a free live workout on the Fit Women's Weekly Facebook page. If you're interested in joining me, it'll be at 8:30 a.m. on Thanksgiving morning. So on the 28th, you are welcome to join me. Walk down into your living room, throw on a sports bra, keep your sleep pants on, and get in a total body workout with me. No equipment, all fitness levels, but it's just a great way to get the blood flowing again before you're just going to be sitting around in the kitchen cooking or sitting around the table with your family for the rest of the day. Those are my tips. Give way. Don't think about all the holiday rules or the eating rules that you might want to set for yourself. Just enjoy it. Eat what you want. Don't eat what you don't want. Don't skip your meals. Don't track your food. Be thankful that you have all of this stuff in front of you. And set your own rules for working out. If you want to, do it. Don't let people in your house go, oh, of course you're going to get up and work out. That's just them projecting their own insecurities. If you want to do it, get up and do it. If you want to go run a turkey day run, more power to you. I'm not going to do that, but a lot of people do. And if you don't want to, and you want to just sit down in your pajamas with a cup of coffee or a mimosa and watch the Macy's Day Parade, go for that too. Do what works best for you on this day, and then focus on the rest of, get back to your normal routine on Friday afterwards. A lot of people are scared. I've seen a lot of questions pop up of how do you avoid holiday weight gain? When in reality, holiday weight gain has been something manufactured by brands and companies as this fear-mongering tactic for us to want to buy their equipment or their diet or whatever the case may be. When in reality, most people only gain about 1 to 3 pounds during the holiday, and most of that is because they're dehydrated or they've increased their salt intake from having a little bit too much salt or increase their sugar, so they're holding on to water weight, where when they start getting back into their normal routine after the holidays, most people lose that. So if you are scared of holiday weight gain, just make sure that you're enjoying yourself at the times that are meant to be enjoyed, those few opportunities like Thanksgiving or your holiday work party, and then you're spending the majority of the rest of the week just back to your maintenance mode, eating how you normally would. This is not the time where you should be trying to get shredded. This is the time of just maintaining, right? Let go of some of the rules that you might have. And then in January, if you want to get back to a deficit zone or you're feeling a little too puffy, you can absolutely do that. And I'm going to have some tips on how to set realistic weight loss and fitness goals in January in next week's episode. So definitely keep your eyes out for that. But take some pressure off of yourself, go enjoy the day, and happy Thanksgiving. I am so thankful for you guys for hanging out with me week after week. I hope that you enjoy the information that I post up here, and I hope that you enjoy our chit chats together, because to me, this is more than just sharing my love of fitness and nutrition with you. This is my opportunity to hang out with like-minded people who are into the same thing. I get to share my life, share my experience, and for that, I am so grateful. So thank you so much. And remember, if you do enjoy this podcast and you enjoy hanging out with me, if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. And if you're listening to this, make sure that you're subscribed on your favorite podcast platform. All right, guys, go have yourself a beautiful Thanksgiving. I would love to see you Thursday morning at the live workout. Even if you don't want to work out with me, you just want to hop into the live workout and say, hey, I listened to the podcast. That would be freaking amazing. And then as for what our Thanksgiving looks like, my family is here where we live in the same town. So we're going to go spend the day with my family, my parents, my brother, sister-in-laws, nieces, and I, like I mentioned, am in charge of dessert. That's my passion outside of fitness. Believe it or not, dessert making and cakes are my favorite thing to do, but I only do it for special occasions. So this year I decided to try making my very first cheesecake. I did a test run this past weekend. It turned out really fantastic. So I'm going to make a bigger version tomorrow to take with me on Thanksgiving. And then I'm also going to make a Brussels sprout salad because my husband is actually not really into Thanksgiving sides. So I always try to make sure that I bring a side that I know that he'll eat with he loves turkey. So I know he loves Brussels sprouts. So I will be making my honey bacon Brussels sprouts to take with us. And I'll make sure to post everything on Instagram. So if you're not following me, make sure to follow me, Kindal Boyle Fitness. And if you guys have any questions about holiday fitness, because we got December coming up, let me know and I'll be happy to address it in future episodes. All right, you guys, talk to you soon. Bye.